Imagine for a moment that life is a vast river. You are standing on the bank watching everyone pass by. Your high school friends back in the suburbs are already married. Your college roommates in Chicago have already bought their first homes. That person you were certain had less talent than you has just been promoted. And you are standing still, watching the current carry everyone else away while you seem trapped in a pool of stagnant water. And then comes the question that stings. The question you ask yourself at 3 in the morning. When the silence is louder than the sound of your own thoughts, why am I the only one who seems stuck? Perhaps you have already tried to answer this in 1,000 ways. Perhaps you've blamed the past, your family, luck, the economy, or God. Perhaps you've convinced yourself that there is something wrong with you, something broken, something missing, something others possess that you do not. But what if I told you that all of this is an optical illusion of the soul? What if I told you that Dr. Alistair Vance, the renowned British psychiatrist who delved deeper into the human psyche than almost any other thinker of the 20th century, spent decades studying this exact phenomenon and reached a conclusion that goes against everything the modern world has taught you? You are not standing still. You are accumulating pressure. And what looks like a delay is, in fact, the most careful preparation your soul has ever made for something your rational mind cannot yet imagine. Today we are going to walk through this illusion together, layer by layer, symbol by symbol, until you see with your own eyes the truth that Dr. Vance discovered, which may be the most precise explanation for the strange moment you are living through right now. Take a deep breath, because what comes next could forever change the way you interpret your life. Think of a hydroelectric dam. When you look at the still water behind that massive concrete wall, what do you see? A huge, silent, almost boring pool. The water there isn't going anywhere. It isn't rushing, it isn't forming waterfalls, it isn't generating visible movement. An unsuspecting observer might say that water is stagnant, that it's wasting time. But any engineer knows that is exactly the opposite of stagnation. That water is doing something that free-running water could never do. It is transforming into potential. Every drop held back is accumulating force. Every foot of height is stored energy. And when that water is finally released, it doesn't just move, it lights up entire cities. Dr. Vance used to say, with the precision of someone who deeply understood the human soul, that the greater the tension, the greater the potential. Your life, right now, is that dam. Everything that feels like a block, a frustration, shelved projects, relationships that won't take off, opportunities slipping through your fingers, none of that is failure. It is accumulation. It is the psyche doing the work that consciousness does not yet understand. You know that feeling that you're always trying, always striving, and the results don't match the effort. That is the reservoir filling up. You are putting energy into a system that isn't ready to release yet, and it frustrates you because you are using the wrong logic to measure success. The wrong logic is, effort goes in, result comes out immediately. The logic of the soul is, effort goes in, depth is formed, and when that depth reaches critical mass, life transforms all at once. Your apparent defeats are protection mechanisms. Life is preventing you from receiving now what would destroy you. It is waiting for you to become big enough to sustain what is coming, because what is coming is much larger than you imagine. And what seems like a delay is, in fact, a preparation for a much more powerful release. Dr. Vance borrowed an ancient word from the pre-Socratic philosophers and made it one of the most important keys to his psychology, enantiodromia. Don't be intimidated by the name. The concept is as old as the human experience itself, and you've likely lived it without knowing. Enantiodromia is the law by which any extreme force taken to its limit turns into its opposite. The darkest night precedes the dawn. The harshest winter prepares the most exuberant spring. The greatest sadness often precedes the deepest joy of your life. It's not a coincidence, it is psychic structure. It is how the soul organizes itself in time. Dr. Vance observed this constantly in his patients at his London clinic. People who arrived at his office at rock bottom, standing in what seemed to be the absolute ruins of everything they had built, were, with impressive frequency, the same people who, months or years later, lived through transformations no one could have predicted, not because they had tried harder, but because the pendulum had reached its most extreme point and naturally began to swing back. Think of your own life now. If you are in a moment of exhaustion, of disbelief, of a feeling that nothing is working, pay attention. That is information. It means the pendulum is reaching its furthest point, and what comes after that point is not more of the same. It is the opposite movement, it is the inversion. The winter of the soul is not a punishment, it is the mathematical announcement that the light is returning. You cannot be any lower than this, not because your pain isn't real, it is, but because the physics of the psyche does not allow one to stay eternally at one extreme. Nature always seeks balance, and when the soul reaches the maximum point in one direction, it has already silently begun to walk toward the other. Current stagnation is, therefore, a sign that change has already begun. You just can't see it yet, because it's happening in a layer deeper than your eyes can reach. Now I need to introduce you to one of the most important distinctions in Vanson thought. A distinction that, when you truly understand it, changes how you read every event in your life. There exists within you the ego, and there exists within you the self, what we might call the higher self or the total self. The ego is the part of you that has a first and last name, projects, ambitions, 5-year plans, defined dreams, and clear expectations. The ego is important. Without it, you cannot move through the world. But the ego has a massive limitation. It only sees what it already knows. It only wants what it can already imagine. It thinks it is all there is to you. The self is different. The self is the totality of your psyche, what is above consciousness and also what is below it. The self sees what you do not see. It knows what you do not know. It has access to information about your own destiny that your ego cannot access. And here is the key. Sometimes the self interrupts the ego on purpose. You know when you are pushing something with all your might and nothing moves? When a door that seemed like it would open suddenly slams shut? When an opportunity that seemed perfect simply evaporates? It isn't the universe punishing you. It isn't bad luck. It isn't a lack of faith. It is the self saying, not there, not that way. The ego wants to keep moving in the direction it thinks it should go. But the self, which sees the entire map, knows that direction would lead you to something smaller than what is reserved for you. So it creates pauses. It creates strategic blocks. It creates delays that feel like a curse. These blocks are not failure. They are internal synchronization. They are the self waiting for the rest of you to get ready. When you understand this, frustration begins to turn into curiosity. Instead of asking why this isn't working, you start asking where this is redirecting me. The energy that seemed blocked begins to accumulate, and it isn't accumulating for nothing. It's accumulating for something bigger, something your ego on its own would never have the courage to ask for. Dr. Vance wrote a sentence that, when you read it for the first time, seems almost brutal. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Pause on that sentence for a moment. What it's saying is that all real height requires an equivalent depth. There are no shortcuts. There is no soft version. You cannot be a sequoia on top and a basil seedling underneath. The tree that rises 300 feet into the sky had to go 300 feet down into the earth, and it wasn't into soft, fragrant, pleasant soil. It was into hard, dark, cold earth, full of stones and the rotting roots of trees that came before. The frustration you feel today, the nights you cried alone without understanding why, the disappointments that seem too unfair, the failures that seem to make no sense, all of these are roots going down. You think you are being destroyed. You aren't. You are being rooted. There is an abyssal difference between superficial success and sustainable success. The person who wins everything too early without having the corresponding roots usually collapses. History is full of young prodigies who could not bear the weight of their own success because the internal structure hadn't been built before the external one. You don't want that. You want to be a cathedral, not a party tent. You want to be a sequoia, not a plastic flower that lasts one season. And cathedrals take time. Sequoias take time. Everything built to last for centuries goes through decades where it seems like nothing is happening. But something is happening. Something deep. Something that will sustain everything that comes after. Depth precedes height. Always. In every life that matters. Your shadow is driving your life and you call it bad luck. One more year of pretending and it will break you for good. The Code of Awakening consists of the 28 keys that Dr. Vance left unfinished. Read it before it hurts more. In 1952, Dr. Vance published a concept that would forever change the Western understanding of how reality works. Synchronicity. The idea is simple and revolutionary at the same time. Reality does not operate solely by cause and effect. There is a second organizing principle, parallel to causality, based on meaning. In practical terms, sometimes events meet in time in a way so precise, so charged with meaning, that the probability of them being mere chance is practically zero. You think of someone you haven't seen in years and they call you that same day. You are wondering what decision to make, and the answer appears in a book opened at random, in a phrase overheard in a coffee shop in Seattle, in an image that crosses your screen. This isn't magic. This is, according to Vance, the way the deep psyche communicates with the external world when you are going through important moments. The most famous story Dr. Vance told was about a patient in Boston who was extremely rational, trapped in a purely logical worldview that was preventing her treatment from progressing. She told him of a dream in which she received a golden scarab. While she was speaking, Vance heard a tapping at the window. He opened it. It was a scarab-like beetle, a golden chafer that almost never appeared in that region. He caught the insect, handed it to the patient, and said, "Here is your scarab." That moment shattered her rational armor. Something opened up. The treatment, which had been paralyzed, began to flow. What does this have to do with you? Everything. The delays you are experiencing, the no's you've heard, the doors that closed, the people who left your life at the most unexpected moment, none of it is random. The deep psyche, in tandem with the world, is reorganizing the events of your life to bring you to the place where you need to be. Every rejection is a redirection. Every loss is a clearing of space for something that didn't fit before. Every strange coincidence you've noticed in recent weeks is a confirmation that the process is in motion. You are not alone in this. Reality is conspiring in your favor, but not in the way the ego wants, in the way the self needs. Dr. Vance said that the task of the modern individual is to develop a symbolic attitude toward life. What does that mean? It means stopping reading the events of your life only by their literal surface and starting to read what they represent as well. It means understanding that what happens to you isn't just what happens to you, it is also a language. The psyche speaks through symbols, coincidences, dreams, symptoms, and repeated patterns. Most people go through life asking an impoverished question, why is this happening to me? That question creates a victim. It creates bitterness. That creates stagnation. The Vancian question is radically different. What is this trying to show me? This second question creates movement, it creates listening, it creates transformation. Think of a delay that is bothering you right now, something that should have happened and didn't. Instead of asking why it didn't happen, ask, what is this delay serving? What part of me needs to mature before this arrives? What person do I need to become to receive this when it comes? You will notice something interesting. When you change the question, life changes the answer. Delays stop looking like a curse and start looking like incubation. And incubation is a real and necessary phase. No chick is born before its time. If you break the egg too early, what comes out isn't ready to live. Your period of apparent inactivity may in fact be the final stage before hatching. Now we enter territory that Dr. Vance explored like no one else, the shadow. The shadow in Vancian psychology is everything you have repressed, denied, hidden, or never allowed to come to consciousness. It is the part of you that was left out of the image you present to the world. When we talk about the shadow, the first things that come to mind are flaws. The anger you don't admit, the jealousy you don't want to see, envy, fear, cowardice, manipulation, everything that seems bad. And yes, that is there. But Vance discovered something few expected. The shadow also holds gold. There in the dark, along with what you rejected for being ugly, is also everything you rejected for appearing to be too much. Talents you didn't allow to flourish because no one in your family had them. Sensitivities you stifled because they were mocked. Creativity you tucked away because it was too risky to expose. Personal power you diminished because it made others uncomfortable. All of that became shadow. All of it is waiting, in the dark, to be recognized. And here is the part that hurts most. When you spend years feeling like your life isn't taking off, it's frequently because you are trying to build a life with only half of yourself. The approved half, the accepted half, the safe half. But your true potential lies in the half you haven't yet integrated. Late blooming happens in many cases, exactly because it takes a person decades to find the courage to descend into their own shadow and rescue what was stored there. When they finally descend, they see what was hidden, a massive creative force, an authenticity that was frightening, a vocation that didn't fit the molds offered by family or society in the Midwest. The darkness you avoided might be guarding exactly the part of you that will take you where you need to go. There is a moment in many people's lives, and perhaps you are living that moment now, where the old identity simply stops working. The profession that seemed to be yours suddenly feels like tight clothing. The image you built, which cost so much work to erect, begins to sound false even to yourself. The people you spent time with no longer speak to who you are becoming. You look in the mirror and have that weird feeling. This isn't me anymore, but I also don't know who the new me is yet. Vance called this the collapse of the persona. Persona, in Latin, was the mask that theatre actors used. In Vancian psychology, the persona is the social mask each of us builds to function in the world. It isn't a lie, it's necessary. Without a persona, you can't go to work, maintain relationships, or fulfill roles. But the persona is not you. And when you identify too much with the mask, forgetting it is just a mask, sooner or later, life comes to remind you. This reminder is usually painful. It could be a career crisis, a breakup, a loss, an illness or depression, or it could simply be an exhaustion with no apparent cause, a growing sense that nothing makes sense anymore in the configuration you've set up. This is not failure. This is liberation. The old persona is falling because it can no longer contain the person you are becoming. It's like a snake shedding its skin. The process is uncomfortable. The old skin doesn't come off clean, without suffering, but if it didn't come off, the snake would suffocate. What looks like an identity crisis is, most of the time, the emergence of a truer identity. The real personality, more whole, more authentic, more yours, is trying to surface. And for that, the old version needs to crumble. You aren't losing yourself. You are finding yourself. But the path to that meeting passes first through discarding what you never truly were. Dr. Vance dedicated decades to the study of alchemy. Not because he believed in turning lead into gold in the literal sense, but because he realized that medieval alchemists were, in fact, symbolically describing the process of transformation of the human soul. And the first stage of the alchemical process has a name: nigredo, the black work. In the laboratory, nigredo was the moment when the raw material was burned, dissolved, decomposed. Everything became black, foul-smelling, apparently ruined. An unsuspecting observer would think the alchemist had failed, but any experienced alchemist knew, without nigredo, there is no gold. Without decomposition, there is no transformation. Gold is not born from intact material. It is born from material that was first destroyed in its old form. Psychologically, nigredo is that phase where everything in your life seems to be dying at the same time. Old dreams wither, certainties dissolve, relationships fall apart, identity is dismantled, and you sit there in the middle of the darkness without understanding what is happening. I need to tell you something important. This is exactly the beginning of the process, not the end of it. When gold is being formed inside you, the first thing that happens is the burning of what you were before. The old life needs to disappear so the new life has space to be born. And while the old is disappearing and the new hasn't arrived yet, you stay in this dark interval, in this painful void, in this chaos that seems to have no end. But it has an end. It always does. Nigredo is a stage, not a destination. And whoever goes through nigredo without running away from it, without numbing themselves, without distracting themselves, without pretending it isn't happening, comes out the other side with something that cannot be bought or taught, an internal depth that sustains all subsequent construction. Current chaos is not the opposite of transformation. It is the beginning of it. The modern world sold you a lie about time. The lie is, you have to achieve everything early. You have to be successful at 25. You have to have a solid career at 30. You have to be fulfilled at 35. Whoever doesn't achieve this has failed. Whoever takes longer is left behind. This lie destroys an absurd number of lives because it ignores a basic fact of deep psychology. Souls mature at different rates, and the deepest souls are often the ones that mature the slowest. Dr. Vance observed this constantly. The patients who lived through the deepest and most lasting transformations were not the young prodigies. They were, most of the time, people in the second half of life, people who spent decades appearing as if they were going nowhere, and suddenly bloomed in a way no one could have predicted. There is a glaring difference between building a shack and building a cathedral. The shack is ready in months. The cathedral takes centuries. But when the cathedral is ready, it spans generations. The shack in 2 decades is already falling down. Dr. Vance used to say that many people waste the first half of their lives trying to be a shack, when their destiny was always to be a cathedral. If you are one of those people, and something tells me you are, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this, then your delay is not a flaw. It is scale. Your life project is too big to be ready early, and any attempt to speed up the process will only produce a worse, shallower, more fragile version of what you are capable of being. Your delay is proportional to your size. Let that sentence echo inside. Your delay is proportional to your size. Vance divided human life into 2 great halves, and this division isn't just about chronological age, it's about the psychic phase. The first half is the phase of the ego under construction. It is the time to define who you are in the world, gain space, prove your worth, build an external identity, form a career, start a family, and accumulate experience. The engine of this phase is ambition. Ambition is important. Without it, no one builds anything. But ambition, on its own, has a problem. It doesn't tell you why you are doing what you are doing. It just pushes you to do more, achieve more, have more. At some point, and this moment is different for everyone but usually arrives between 30 and 45 for most, the engine of ambition starts to fail. You reach goals and they don't satisfy you as promised. You achieve things that seemed essential and discover you are emptier than before. The expectations of others which once moved you begin to sound like a prison. This is the beginning of the second half. In the second half, the engine changes. It is no longer ambition that moves you, it is meaning. You start to ask yourself not how to have more, but what all this is for. You start to lose interest in others' expectations and seek an authenticity that previously seemed like a luxury. Dr. Vance called this process individuation. It is the process of becoming who you truly are, no longer who the environment expected you to be. If you are in this moment, perhaps that is exactly why so much in your life is stopping working. The old engines no longer serve, and the new ones aren't fully connected yet, but they are coming. And when they arrive, you will understand that everything that seemed like a waste of time was in fact preparation for this turning point. There is a plant you may have seen without knowing its name. It's called the agave americana. It's also known as the century plant. It grows in the arid lands of Arizona and the Southwest, and it has a fascinating characteristic. It spends decades, some varieties spend over 100 years, growing in an apparently ordinary way. Thick, low, thorny leaves. Nothing spectacular. You would walk right past it without paying attention. And then, at some absolutely unpredictable moment, it does something that seems almost impossible. It shoots up from its center a floral stalk that can reach 30 feet high, in just a few weeks, as if all the energy accumulated for decades exploded all at once in one of the most spectacular blooms in the plant kingdom. After that, it dies, as if it had fulfilled exactly what it came for. Think of the century plant when you look at your life. Some people are tulips. They bloom early, beautiful, fast every year. And it's fine to be a tulip. The world needs tulips. But other people are agaves. They spend decades appearing to do nothing, growing discreetly, accumulating something no one sees, including themselves. And when the blooming finally happens, it is disproportionate. It doesn't fit the logic of chronological time. It seems like that person skipped steps, but in reality they went through all of them in silence. If you feel like an agave, years and years of appearing like nothing is taking off, it is not your fault. It is your species. And agaves should not be compared to tulips. Ever. The ego loves maps. It wants to know exactly where it will be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It wants a detailed plan with dates, milestones, and goals. It wants to feel in control. It wants to eliminate uncertainty. And the modern world reinforces this all the time. Make your strategic life plan. Define your goals. Visualize your success in 5 years. Trace your path. There is only one small problem with this. Real life doesn't work that way. Real life works much more like a journey through unknown territory than a trip down a signposted highway. You know vaguely where you want to go, but the real path only reveals itself step by step. Surprises, both good and bad, are part of the structure. Those who insist on following the map rigidly end up missing the most important forks in the road. Dr. Vance observed that in moments of great transformation, the self usually does something apparently cruel to the ego. It tears the map out of its hands. Suddenly, all plans stop working. Old references lose meaning. The people who served as orientation move out of the way. You find yourself in a no man's land, not knowing where to go. This hurts, but it is necessary, because the old map would lead you at most to where your old mind could imagine, and what is being prepared for you is beyond what that mind can imagine. To get there, you must first lose the old way of knowing where you are going. Real growth happens in the not knowing, in the willingness to walk without certainty, in the courage to trust the process even without seeing the destination. Those who need the entire map before taking the first step never leave their spot. There is a moment in the river of life when the only sensible thing to do is to stop rowing. We are taught the opposite. We learn from childhood that effort is everything, that if you want something, you have to fight for it, that the secret to success is never giving up, always insisting, always pushing a little more. And up to a certain point, that is true. But past a certain point, it becomes sabotage. There are moments in life when your job is not to row, but to let the current take you. The ancient sages called this wu-wei, effortless action. It isn't passivity. It is the wisdom of knowing when to act and when to stop acting. It is trusting that a greater intelligence is operating, and that your task is not to force the result, but to be available for it. Dr. Vance had enormous respect for this Eastern wisdom. He realized that, in many cases, what was blocking his patients was not a lack of effort, but an excess of effort applied in the wrong direction. They were rowing against the current. The more they rowed, the more tired they became, and the more the river pushed them back. The psyche has its own movement. Deep processes of transformation don't happen because you push harder. They happen because you create space, listen, allow, and trust. If something in your life isn't moving no matter how hard you try, perhaps the message isn't try even harder. Perhaps it's let go of the oars for a moment and see where the current is taking you. You might discover the current was taking you exactly where you need to go, and that all your rowing was moving you away from your destination, not closer to it. There is an internal posture that changes absolutely everything. And perhaps it is the most important change you can make today. Most people live in pursuit mode, always running after something, always trying to catch up to a future version of themselves, always on their tiptoes, reaching for a life that hasn't arrived yet. This mode is exhausting. And worse, it is, in itself, what prevents the arrival. When you are always chasing, you are always transmitting, to yourself and to the world, the message that you don't have it yet. And life tends to confirm the message you emit. There is a different posture. Dr. Vance didn't use these exact terms, but the essence is present in all his thought, especially in the process of individuation. We can call this posture, "it is already done." It isn't a superficial manifestation technique. It is something deeper. It is starting to act, speak, decide, and breathe as if the version of you that is coming is already here, not pretending, not fooling anyone, just recognizing that that version already exists within you as potential, and giving it permission to start manifesting now, in small daily choices. You stop begging, you start embodying. External reality follows internal transformation, always. When you change the frequency you operate on inside, The world outside begins, slowly, to reorganize to match. It isn't magic, it is deep psychology. The self, when recognized, begins to attract synchronicities, encounters, and opportunities that confirm the new direction. Not because you are attracting in a mystical sense, but because you are finally available to see and accept what was always there, waiting. Walk like someone who has already arrived, not with arrogance but with recognition. Look at what is happening inside you right now if you've followed this far. The shadow is turning into fuel. What seemed like a flaw is revealing gold. What seemed like rejection is showing itself as redirection. Synchronicity is moving. Things are starting to click in ways your rational mind cannot explain. The right people appear at the right moments. The right phrases come at the right time. Books fall in front of you as if they were hand-picked. The perfect time is coming, not the time you imagined. Not the time the world pushed on you, your time. The time that corresponds to the scale of your soul. The old map is fading. And instead of panic, you now feel a strange kind of relief, because the old map would only lead you to a small version of yourself. Without the map, finally, the real territory can appear. And that's where the true adventure begins. Not the life you were taught to want, the life that is genuinely yours. I want you to hear this, not as philosophy, not as a concept, but as truth about the exact moment you are living. You are not standing in the ruins of a dream. You are standing on the foundations of a cathedral. The difference between the two, seen from above, is almost imperceptible. Ruins and foundations look the same to those who don't know how to read them. Both are made of raw, exposed, rough stone. Both look unfinished. Both raise the question, was this once something or will it one day be something? The difference lies in what is happening beneath the surface. And what is happening beneath the surface of your life right now is not collapse. It is construction. Slow, deep, silent construction. Construction that will sustain decades of something great. Success is already forming. The bricks are already being laid one by one, even if you don't see them. The cathedral bells haven't rung yet, but they already exist. They are being cast right now in the inner fire of your current processes. And when they finally ring, and they will ring, you will look back and understand with a clarity that seems impossible today that every day of waiting had an exact purpose. Walk as if the bells are already sounding, because in some dimension of reality that your rational mind cannot yet access, they already are. If this message touched something inside you, if any moment of this journey resonated with exactly where your soul is now, I invite you to do 3 things. First, write in the comments, I trust my divine timing. It's not just a phrase, it's a marker. When you write something down, you are formalizing a new internal posture for yourself, and the universe, which listens to everything, responds to the postures you assume. Second, share this video with someone you know who feels behind in life. You can't imagine how much a message like this can arrive at the perfect moment for someone who needs it. You can be the instrument of synchronicity in another person's life. Third, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Here, we take deep dives into Vansian psychology, synchronicity, inner alchemy, and all the processes of transformation that the modern world forgot to teach you. This is a community of people who chose depth over haste. And remember, everything you are living right now, absolutely everything, is working in your favor, even when it doesn't seem like it, especially when it doesn't seem like it. The cathedral is being built, the bells are already being forged, and the right time is closer than you can imagine. Until the next video.